I froze on the floor, chalk still in my shaking hand, the summoning circle glowing faintly beneath me. My pulse hammered so loud I could barely hear anything else. I whispered, "It worked." That wasn't relief in my chest. That was terror. Because something was standing in front of me now. Not a monster. Not claws. Not horns. Not fire. A man. Barefoot. Tall. Calm. Watching me. His hair was black like spilled ink falling loose over his shoulders. His skin looked too smooth, too untouched by the world. Like he didn't belong to dust or hunger or time. His eyes were wrong. Not glowing. Not red. Just impossibly still. As if nothing in this world had ever surprised him. Except maybe me. "You called," he said. His voice wasn't deep. It wasn't scary. It was worse than that. It was gentle. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't blink. He looked down at the circle, then back at me, and something like faint amusement passed over his face. "You did not do it correctly," he added calmly. My throat barely worked. I followed the book." "I know," he said. "That is why I am here." I swallowed hard. "So, you're real?" He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "I am summoned," he corrected. "Reality is irrelevant." I stared at him. My brain refused to catch up with what was happening. 2 hours ago, I had been just a desperate older brother with a dying kid in the next room. Now there was a demon standing barefoot in my apartment. He glanced around like he was memorizing everything, the chipped wall, the cracked ceiling, the flickering lamp. Like this place mattered. "State your wish," he said. "And prepare to kill me afterward." The words landed softly. Too softly. "What?" I whispered. He didn't repeat it. Didn't dramatize it. Just watched me with quiet certainty. As is tradition. A chill crawled up my spine. "I'm not killing you." His gaze didn't change. "You will." "No, I won't." "You called me to grant a miracle," he said gently. "Miracles demand closure." What does that even mean? He studied my face, and for the first time I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Not hunger. Not cruelty. Expectation. Like he already knew how this would end. "Humans always choose the same ending," he said quietly. "It is easier that way." Something twisted in my chest. I pushed myself to my feet slowly, legs weak. "What's your name?" He blinked. Just once. A pause that felt too long. "I do not have one." "You have to have a name." He considered that like it was a foreign concept. "Summoners call me by designation." "Which is?" "Saris." The way he said it wasn't pride. It was resignation. I repeated it softly. "Saris." His eyes lifted to mine again, searching. Watching. Waiting. The silence between us felt thick with things I didn't understand. I glanced toward the closed bedroom door behind me. My brother. Skin pale. Breathing shallow. Doctors out of answers. That was why I had done this. I forced myself to meet Saris's gaze. Can you really heal someone?" "Yes." Just that. No boasting. No theatrics. "Yes." My chest burned. "Then heal him," I said. "Please." He nodded once. "Show me." I led him toward the bedroom on legs that didn't feel real. Every step felt like walking deeper into something I couldn't undo. When I opened the door, Saris stopped in the doorway. He looked at my brother the way someone looks at something fragile. Not prey. Not object. But carefully. "His thread is thinning," Saris murmured. "What?" "Life," he clarified. I turned back sharply. "Can you save him?" "Yes." No hesitation. No price. No negotiation. He stepped forward and knelt beside the bed, one hand hovering just above my brother's chest. Light, soft, barely visible, spread under his palm like dawn behind clouds. My brother inhaled sharply. Color returned to his cheeks. His breathing deepened. I clapped a hand over my mouth, eyes burning. It was working. It was actually working. When Saris withdrew his hand, my brother looked peaceful. Like he was just sleeping. Alive. I turned to Saris with shaking hands. You did it? You actually..." He swayed. Just slightly. So small I almost missed it. But I saw it. "You're okay?" I asked quickly. He steadied himself before I could reach him. "I am functional." "That's not the same as okay." He looked at me strangely. Like he didn't understand the difference. "I will remain until the ritual concludes," he said quietly. Then you will complete your role. My stomach dropped. You're not listening. I said I'm not killing you. You are emotional, he observed. That will pass. No, it won't. He studied me, head tilted again like I was something confusing and unexpected. Why? He asked simply. The question wasn't mocking. It was honest. I opened my mouth and realized I didn't have a clean answer. Because he helped me? Because he saved my brother? Because he looked like someone who'd already accepted death too easily? All I managed was, because you're not a thing. Silence. The air shifted. Saris stared at me like I had just broken a rule he didn't know could be broken. You are incorrect, he said softly. Then prove me wrong, I shot back, heart racing. Prove you're just some disposable miracle machine. He didn't answer. Just watched me. And in that moment I realized something that sent a different kind of fear down my spine. He wasn't waiting to be killed. He was waiting to be abandoned. A knock suddenly rattled the front door. Art. Loud. I spun around. Saris's head lifted instantly, gaze sharp. That is not random, he said quietly. The knock came again. More aggressive. My blood went cold. Who? I started. Saris's eyes darkened slightly. They have noticed. Who is they? But before he could answer, a voice called from the other side of the door. Jalen Carter. Open the door. Temple authority. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. Saris's gaze flicked to me. And for the first time since he appeared, his calm broke. Just barely. They came too soon, he whispered. Chapter 2, The Man at the Door. The man outside my door knew my name. Not, someone inside. Not, open up. Not even, summoner. He said my full name like he'd practiced it. Jalen Carter. Open the door. Temple authority. I looked at Saris. He looked at the door. Then, slowly he stepped in front of me. Not aggressively. Not dramatically. Just, positioned himself between me and danger. They should not know your identity this quickly, he murmured. My heart was slamming against my ribs. You're telling me this isn't normal? The knocking came again, harder this time. The door frame rattled. This is not procedure, Saris said calmly. Too calmly. They usually allow attachment to grow before intervention. Attachment. I echoed. He didn't answer. Instead he turned to me, eyes sharp now, calculating. Like someone who had survived too many endings and was adjusting to another. Do not open the door, he said. What happens if I do? They will attempt to convince you that I am lying to you. That sent ice through my veins. About what? That I am disposable. The word sat between us like something fragile. Disposable. Another knock. Jalen, we are here for your safety, the man called. His voice was smooth. Warm. Almost kind. We detected unauthorized ritual energy in this location. You could be in serious danger. I almost laughed. Danger. My brother was alive because of the thing they probably wanted me to fear. I leaned closer to Saris. What are they exactly? He hesitated. Just a second. Long enough for me to notice. They manage the system, he said finally. What system? The cycle. That again. The structure. The system. The cycle. All these words that sounded like cages disguised as order. The door shook suddenly as someone tried the handle. Open the door, Jalen, the man said more sharply. We can help you end this safely. Saris's hand lifted slightly, not touching me, just hovering close to my wrist. Like he wanted to, but was restraining himself. They will offer you a weapon, he said quietly. They will tell you I am manipulating you. Are you? His eyes flicked to mine. Something in them shifted. Not defensiveness. Not anger. Just sadness. I do not need to manipulate you, he said softly. You are doing something far more dangerous on your own. What? You are choosing. Another knock, almost a pound now. Jalen, the man warned, voice harder. You have 10 seconds before we force entry. My stomach twisted. They can do that? I whispered. Yes. Why? Because they believe they own the outcome of your choice. That did something sharp to my chest. I glanced toward my brother's room. He was sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. Because of Saris. I looked back at the door. 5 seconds, the man called. I didn't know what came over me. Fear. Anger. Instinct. Maybe all of it. I stepped forward and yanked the door open. A man stood there in a clean white coat with silver markings stitched into the collar. Temple insignia. Calm eyes. Neatly combed hair. Hands folded politely like this was a doctor's visit. 2 armed guards stood behind him. His gaze softened when he saw me. Jalen. Thank the heavens. Are you unharmed? Behind me I felt Saris go still. I'm fine, I said cautiously. The man smiled gently. Good. That means we arrived in time. Time for what? To protect you. His eyes flicked past me into the apartment. Scanned. Assessed. Then his gaze landed on Saris. And his smile didn't change. But something in his eyes did. Recognition. Ah, he said pleasantly. Asset confirmed. Asset. Saris didn't move. Didn't react. Just watched. The man stepped forward like he had every right to be here. I am Caldrus. Temple Oversight. Why are you here? I asked flatly. Because you performed an illegal summoning, he replied gently. And because prolonged exposure to a demon can result in psychological distortion. I felt Saris's presence at my back like a quiet storm. Say what you need to say, Caldrus continued calmly, but understand this. Your thoughts, your emotions, your growing reluctance. None of it is entirely your own anymore. My stomach twisted. You're saying he's controlling me? Caldrus nodded slowly, sympathetically. Not intentionally. But demons are designed to bond. To soften. To influence. It's how they ensure survival before disposal. Disposal. He said it so easily. Like it was expected. Normal. I glanced back at Saris. His face hadn't changed. But his eyes. They looked distant. Like he'd heard this speech before. Too many times. Caldrus extended his hand and revealed a small object resting in his palm. A dagger. Silver. Thin. Etched with faint runes that shimmered like they were breathing. This, Caldrus said gently, will allow you to complete the ritual cleanly. Complete. Cleanly. You mean kill him, I said. He nodded, still calm. Release him. I turned fully toward Saris now. Is that what they always say? Saris's gaze met mine. Yes. Not bitter. Not angry. Just tired. Why? I demanded. Because it makes you feel righteous, Caldrus answered smoothly. You get your miracle. You save your loved one. And you believe you have prevented corruption. I looked between them. My heart pounding. What happens if I don't? Caldrus's smile thinned slightly. Then the system begins to destabilize. System? I repeated. Yes, he said. And when the system collapses, people suffer. People like my brother? I asked. People like entire cities. The weight of that slammed into me. Saris spoke quietly behind me. They are lying by omission. Caldrus's gaze snapped to him sharply. Silence. Saris didn't flinch. They will not tell you, Saris continued calmly, voice steady, that the system they protect is built on my death. The air went still. Caldrus's eyes hardened. What do you mean? I whispered. Saris looked at me. Not pleading. Not dramatic. Just honest. Every miracle granted by my kind is powered by our destruction. My breath caught. What? We are created, he said softly, to be used, to be killed, to be rebuilt, to die again. Caldrus stepped forward sharply. That is an oversimplification. You harvest our cores, Saris continued, gaze never leaving mine. You distribute the energy. You call it divine blessing. The room felt like it was tilting. I looked back at Caldrus. Is that true? He didn't answer immediately. Just studied me. Then said carefully, it is necessary. Necessary. That was his defense. Not denial. Not outrage. Not accusation. Just necessity. My stomach turned. Caldrus took another step closer, voice low, persuasive. Jalen, listen to me. He is designed to make you feel sympathy. Affection. Connection. It is part of the architecture. If you hesitate, more infrastructure will fail. More lives will be at risk. Saris's voice came softer now. You are not required to carry that burden. I turned fully to him. You knew this would happen, didn't you? Yes. And you still saved my brother. Yes. Even knowing they'd come for you? Yes. My chest burned. Caldrus extended the dagger toward me again. You still have time to do the right thing. The blade glowed faintly. Waiting. Like a decision made of metal. I stared at it, then at Saris, then back at the man who had calmly told me that suffering was necessary. I took a slow step forward. Caldress's eyes lit with approval. Good. My fingers wrapped around the dagger. The metal felt cold, alive, heavy. I turned back toward Saris. His gaze was steady, accepting, like he'd already lost. My throat tightened. I'm sorry, I whispered. Caldress exhaled in relief. Saris didn't move. Then I walked past Saris, straight toward Caldress, and said quietly, You're the one I don't trust. Caldress's expression froze, and behind me for the first time, I felt Saris's hand close around my wrist, not to stop me, not to guide me, just to hold. Chapter 3, The Thing That Was Never Supposed to Exist. Saris's hand on my wrist was warm, not cold like I expected, not inhuman, just warm, real, steady. The moment his fingers closed around me, something shifted in the air. Not magic, not light, just tension, thick and immediate. Caldress noticed it too. His eyes flicked to where Saris held me, and for the first time since he arrived, his calm cracked. Unhand him, Caldress said sharply. Saris didn't move, didn't speak, just stood behind me, hands still wrapped around my wrist like it was the most natural thing in the world. You said he influences me, I said quietly, staring straight at Caldress. So tell me, if that's true, why does this feel like the first time someone's actually choosing me back? Silence. Heavy. Charge. Caldress's jaw tightened. Because attachment is how corruption begins. Or maybe, I shot back, it's how truth does. The guards behind him shifted uncomfortably. One of them avoided looking at Saris altogether. I raised the dagger slowly between us. Caldress's eyes followed the movement, calculating. You said killing him saves the system, I continued. Tell me exactly what breaks if I don't. He hesitated. Just for half a second. But I saw it. You are not equipped to understand the architecture, he said carefully. These are divine mechanics beyond human comprehension. Try me. Saris's grip tightened slightly. Not painful. Just supportive. Like he was bracing me. Caldress studied me for a long moment. Then he sighed softly like a disappointed teacher. Fine, he said. You want truth? Then understand this. He gestured toward Saris. Demons are not natural beings. They are constructs, designed by the gods long ago when miracles were too chaotic to control. Each demon is built to convert human desire into power. Every wish, every healing, every blessing. He tapped the dagger lightly with one finger. And when a demon dies, the accumulated power is released and harvested, distributed to sustain divine order. I stared at him. So you built them to suffer. Caldress corrected calmly, we built them to function. I felt Saris go still behind me. Were you ever given a choice? I asked softly. Saris didn't answer right away. Then quietly, choice was not included in my design. That sentence broke something in my chest. Caldress stepped forward again. Which is precisely why your sympathy is dangerous. You are projecting humanity onto a mechanism. I turned slowly. Saris was watching me. Not the dagger. Not Caldress. Not the guards. Me. Like my reaction mattered more than anything else in the room. You're not a mechanism, I said quietly. His gaze flickered. Just slightly. You do not know that, he said. Then let's test it, I said, voice shaking but determined. I lifted my free hand and touched his chest. Right over his heart. His breath stuttered. Actually stuttered. Like someone surprised by touch. If you were just built to perform, I whispered, this wouldn't mean anything. His pulse was fast beneath my palm. Fast and real. Behind me, Caldress's voice sharpened. Jalen, stop. I didn't. Saris's voice came lower now. Unsteady. You should not be doing this. Why? I asked softly. Because it's unsafe for me? He swallowed. Actually swallowed. No, he admitted. Because it is unsafe for me. My heart cracked open. Caldress stepped forward abruptly. That's enough. Guards. The two behind him moved instantly. Saris reacted faster. In the blink of an eye, the air shifted, not violent, not flashy, just heavy pressure. The guards froze mid-step, unable to move. Caldress stopped short, eyes widening. What did you do? He demanded. Saris's hand was still on my wrist. He looked at the guards, then back at Caldress. I adjusted probability, he said quietly. I blinked. You what? I made it unlikely for them to reach us, he clarified. That was the most terrifying sentence I'd ever heard spoken calmly. Caldress stared at him with something like awe and fear. You're not supposed to be able to do that without a completed cycle, Caldress said slowly. You haven't been terminated. Your energy reserves. Saris cut him off. Are not behaving as predicted. Caldress's gaze snapped to me. Something cold crawled up my spine. You, Caldress said softly. You've altered the asset. What? I demanded. Saris's grip on my wrist tightened slightly. Caldress took a slow step back, studying us like a puzzle he didn't like the solution to. This is why summoners are never allowed to maintain prolonged emotional contact, he said quietly. You've destabilized his design. Good, I said. That wasn't a compliment, Caldress replied. That's a catastrophe. The guards suddenly gasped as the pressure holding them released. They stumbled back, shaken. Caldress didn't look at them. He looked only at Saris. You're changing, he said softly. Saris didn't deny it. I turned to him. Changing how? Saris hesitated. Then he said the words that made my stomach drop. I am beginning to want things I was not built to want. My chest went tight. Like what? He looked at me. Not away. Not down. Not distant. Straight into my eyes. You, he said quietly. The room went dead silent. Caldress's composure shattered. Impossible, he whispered. And I realized something in that moment. This wasn't just emotional. This wasn't just attachment. This wasn't a demon bonding with a summoner. This was something that had never happened before. And whatever Saris was becoming, the system was going to try to destroy him for it. Caldress straightened slowly, his calm now replaced with cold resolve. This cannot be allowed to continue, he said flatly. You've created a defect. He met my gaze. And defects must be erased. The dagger in my hand vibrated faintly. Not from magic. From warning. Saris's voice came soft beside me. They will escalate now. I swallowed hard. How badly? He didn't answer right away. Then quietly. They will send something stronger than men. Chapter 4. The thing that followed us out. Saris was already moving before Caldress finished his sentence. Not running. Not panicking. Just shifting the world around us. 1 second I was standing in my apartment. The next the air bent like glass. My stomach lurched violently. Then suddenly we were standing in an alley 3 blocks away, cold night air biting into my skin. I staggered, grabbing the wall. You teleported us? Saris steadied me instantly. Relocation. That is teleporting. It is not precise enough to be called that, he said calmly. Behind us the apartment building was silent. No guards. No Caldress. No knock. Just normal city sounds. For a second I almost believed we'd escaped. Then Saris went very still. His hand tightened on mine again. You feel that? I asked. Yes. My stomach dropped. That's not reassuring. He didn't answer. Instead, his gaze lifted slowly to the end of the alley. The shadows there didn't move like shadows should. They pooled, thickened, stretched upward. And then something stepped out of them. Not a man. Not fully. It wore a human shape the way smoke wears shape. Too tall. Too narrow. Its limbs bent slightly wrong, like it had learned anatomy from memory instead of experience. Its face was smooth. No eyes. No mouth. No features. Just blank skin. It tilted its head toward us. Saris's voice dropped to a whisper. They sent a collector. I swallowed hard. A what? A being designed to retrieve malfunctioning assets. My pulse thundered. So, you? Yes. The thing in the alley took 1 slow step toward us. Then another. Each movement was smooth and wrong at the same time. I tightened my grip on Saris's hand. Okay. New plan. You relocate us again. Saris didn't move. Saris? His gaze was locked on the collector. I cannot, he said quietly. What do you mean you can't? My abilities are inconsistent now. The creature took another step. The air around it distorted like heat. You're telling me that now? I hissed. I am telling you now because it is now true. The collector tilted its head again. Then it spoke. Not out loud. Inside my head. Return the asset. Return the defect. Return the broken function. I gasped, clutching my temples. It's in my head. Saris's grip on me tightened protectively. Do not listen, he said firmly. It is attempting to destabilize you. The collector moved faster. Suddenly it was halfway down the alley. No sound. No footsteps. Just closer. I panicked. Okay, you said you can manipulate probability. Do that again. Saris's brow furrowed. I am trying. The air around us trembled. The collector hesitated mid-step, like it had hit invisible resistance. Then its head snapped up. The pressure in my skull doubled. Anomaly detected. Emotional corruption confirmed. Correction authorized. Saris's hand flew to his chest like he'd been struck. Saris? He sucked in a sharp breath. Jalen, he said tightly, we must run. Now. We didn't get far. The collector appeared in front of us without moving. Just was suddenly there, blocking the exit of the alley. I froze. Saris pulled me behind him instantly. You will not touch him, Saris said, voice low. The collector tilted its head. Emotional defense response observed. Attachment level exceeds safe parameters. Termination recommended. Over my dead body, I whispered. Saris flinched. Just slightly. Do not say that, he said quietly. The collector lifted its arm. The air twisted around it. Not fire. Not light. Not anything physical. Just pressure. Like gravity suddenly tripled. I collapsed to my knees with a cry. Saris immediately dropped beside me. No, he snapped, voice sharp now. You will not. Something invisible slammed into him. He hit the wall hard. The sound was sickening. Saris? I shouted. He pushed himself up instantly, but I saw it then. Blood. Not black. Not strange. Red. Human red. My stomach flipped. You can bleed. I whispered. He looked at his hand like he didn't understand it either. The collector tilted its head again. Structural instability confirmed. Asset degradation accelerating. Cause, emotional deviation. It turned its blank face toward me. Remove the summoner. Stabilize the asset. The air around me tightened. Like invisible hands around my chest. I couldn't breathe. Saris, I choked. He didn't hesitate. The moment he saw me struggling, something inside him snapped. Not violently. Not explosively. Just shifted. The air changed. The shadows around us reacted. Like the world itself leaned toward him. Do not touch him, Saris said again. But this time his voice wasn't calm. It was layered. Like two tones speaking at once. The collector froze. Actually froze. Like time had hesitated. Saris stood slowly, eyes locked on the thing. You were created, he said softly, to enforce their order. The collector didn't respond. I was created, Saris continued, voice trembling with something new, something raw, to suffer under it. He took a step forward. The collector recoiled. Actually recoiled. I stared in shock. You will not take him, Saris said quietly. You will not touch him. You will not even see him. The air around the collector warped. Its form flickered. Like bad signal. Anomaly. Unauthorized command. Saris lifted his hand. Not toward the collector. Toward me. And in that moment I felt it. Something like a thread between us. Taut. Bright. Alive. Jalen, he whispered, voice breaking. I am afraid. That hit harder than anything else. You're afraid? I whispered. Yes. The collector let out a sound for the first time. Not a scream. Not a voice. A distortion. Like reality tearing. Saris's eyes widened. I cannot hold it, he said urgently. It is resisting. I scrambled to my feet and grabbed his hand. Then don't hold it alone. His gaze snapped to me. What? You said we're bonded now, I said, heart pounding. You said I destabilized you. So maybe I can stabilize you too. His breath hitched. That thread between us pulsed. The collector staggered backward. I didn't know how I knew what to do. I just knew. I squeezed Saris's hand tighter. Focus on me, I whispered. Not them. Not the system. Not what they made you for. Just me. His eyes searched mine. Like he was terrified of what he might see. Jalen, he whispered, voice shaking, if I lose control, then we deal with that together, I said. But I'm not letting you face this alone. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Then Saris exhaled shakily. And the collector collapsed. Not exploded. Not destroyed. Just unraveled. Like smoke dispersing. The alley went silent. Too silent. Saris stared at where it had been. Then slowly looked down at his hands. I did not calculate that outcome, he murmured. I stepped closer. You didn't calculate a lot of this. He let out a soft, broken laugh. That is becoming a pattern. He looked up at me. Eyes brighter. More alive. More human. Jalen, he said quietly, this is what I am afraid of. What? He swallowed. You are changing me faster than they ever did. My heart stuttered. And that's bad. I asked softly. He held my gaze. And for the first time he didn't look resigned. He looked uncertain. And underneath that, he looked hopeful. According to their system, he said quietly, it is catastrophic. A chill crept down my spine. Saris, I asked slowly, what happens when they stop sending collectors, and start coming themselves? He didn't answer right away. Then very softly. Then the gods will notice. Chapter 5, The Place He Was Never Allowed to Remember. We didn't talk while we walked. Not because there was nothing to say, but because everything felt too fragile to touch with words. The city was still alive around us. Traffic, voices, lights, laughter. Like nothing had changed. Like there wasn't a collapsing divine system tracking our every breath. Sarah stayed close. Not hovering. Not gripping me constantly. Just near enough that I could feel him. Like gravity. After 3 blocks he stopped suddenly. I turned. What is it? He looked around slowly like he was recognizing something. This area, he said quietly. It feels familiar. Familiar how? He hesitated. Then admitted almost reluctantly, I believe I have been here before. That sent a chill through me. When? I do not know. We stood outside an old building, brick, narrow windows, faded signage. A library that had clearly outlived its funding. Why would you have been here? I asked. Saris didn't answer. Just stared at the door. Then, like something pulling him forward, he reached for the handle. Inside, the air smelled like dust and old paper. Warm. Forgotten. Safe. Too safe. The kind of place no divine authority would bother monitoring. We moved between the shelves slowly. My heart was still racing from everything that had happened, but here, the world felt quieter. Saris touched the spines of the books like he was testing if they were real. You've never been in a place like this? I asked softly. He shook his head. I have existed in temples. Ritual chambers. Between dimensions. But never a normal place, I finished. No. Something about that hurt more than I expected. We found a corner table. I sat. He remained standing for a moment, then slowly lowered himself into the chair across from me, like he wasn't used to choosing to sit. You're shaking, I said gently. I am overwhelmed. By what? He looked at his hands. By everything I am now aware of, he said. By sensation. By fear. By you. My chest tightened. In a bad way? He lifted his gaze. No, he said softly. In a way that feels uncontainable. That scared me more than the collector had. You said earlier you're afraid, I reminded him. Tell me what you're afraid of. He hesitated. Then spoke quietly like confession. If my emotions continue to evolve at this rate, I may become something the gods never accounted for. That sounds like a good thing. Or something they will attempt to erase completely. That optimism evaporated fast. I leaned forward. Saris, when Caldrus called you a construct, did he mean that literally? Saris's eyes darkened slightly. Yes. My stomach dropped. Like, created in a lab kind of literally? More precisely, assembled. The word was worse. From what? I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. I felt it before he said it, the weight of something heavy he'd been avoiding. From fragments, he said softly. Of other beings like me. I went still. What? When demons are destroyed, he continued, voice low and steady, not all energy disperses cleanly. Pieces remain. Consciousness shards. Emotional residue. Memory echoes. I stared at him, barely breathing. They collect those remnants, he said, eyes distant now, and use them to build new demons. My hands went numb. You're saying? I am not one life, he finished quietly. I am many stitched together. I felt sick. Not because he was monstrous, but because of what had been done to him. That's not creation, I whispered. That's cruelty. Saris looked at me. It is function. No, I said firmly. It's torture disguised as infrastructure. Something in his expression cracked. Just slightly. You speak as though that distinction matters, he said. It does, I said immediately. It matters because you're not a tool. You're a person who's been hurt. The word person hit him like a physical thing. He looked down again. I contain memories that are not mine, he admitted quietly. Grief that does not belong to one lifetime. Fear that has no beginning. Longing with no origin. I reached across the table without thinking and took his hand. He stiffened, then slowly relaxed. You don't have to carry that alone anymore, I said softly. His fingers curled around mine almost involuntarily. Jalen, he whispered, I do not know how to want you safely. My breath caught. You don't have to know how. You just have to be honest. He searched my face like he was trying to solve an impossible equation. Then I am terrified, he said quietly. Because when I am near you, I experience things I cannot suppress. Like what? Jealousy, he admitted. Fear of losing you. A desire to be near you constantly. A need to protect you even when it is illogical. An ache when you are not within my perception. My heart pounded. That's not corruption, I said softly. That's feelings. He swallowed hard. That is what they warned against. Of course they did, I murmured. Because if you learn you can feel, you might also learn you deserve more than suffering. His gaze lifted sharply to mine. Like that thought had never fully formed until I said it. The lights above us flickered. Just once. We both noticed. Saris's head turned slowly toward the ceiling. They are searching, he said quietly. My pulse spiked. Already? Yes. The air in the room felt heavier again. Not collector heavy. Something worse. Saris squeezed my hand unconsciously. They will not send enforcement next, he said softly. What will they send? He looked at me. Eyes full of something raw and frightened and painfully human. They will send memory. I frowned. What does that mean? He didn't answer. Instead, the shadows between the shelves shifted. Not pooling. Not forming. Just moving. Like something invisible walking between them. I turned slowly. Saris, I whispered. He stood immediately, stepping in front of me again. The air dropped 10 degrees in a heartbeat. And then a voice spoke behind us. Not from the room. From everywhere. Saris. His entire body went rigid. The voice continued, smooth and ancient. Come home. Chapter 6. The voice that knew his name. The voice didn't echo. It didn't come from a direction. It didn't need sound. It just existed everywhere at once, pressing into the air like gravity. Saris. Come home. His entire body went rigid in front of me. Not fear like before. Not panic. This was something deeper. Recognition. Don't answer, I whispered. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there, staring into nothing like someone had reached inside him and frozen him from the inside out. The lights above us flickered again. This time they didn't recover. The library sank into darkness. Not pitch black. But dim, warped, distorted. Like reality was being overwritten. You have wandered far from your purpose. Saris finally spoke, voice low and tight. I do not have a purpose. I have a will. The air went very still. I could almost feel something listening. That is the flaw we are correcting. My chest tightened. Who are you? The answer came calmly. You're architects. Saris flinched. Actually flinched. I stepped closer behind him. Saris? He didn't turn around. They are not meant to speak directly, he said quietly. They do not reveal themselves to mortals. He is no longer mortal, the voice replied. My stomach dropped. What? I whispered. Saris finally turned to me. His eyes were wide and terrified. Jalen, he said softly, they are speaking to you because they can already see the change in you. What change? He opened his mouth, then stopped. The voice answered instead. The bond. Cold fear crawled down my spine. You were not merely a summoner. You were an anomaly waiting to be triggered. No, I said sharply. I'm just a guy who tried to save his brother. You are a catalyst. Saras shook his head violently. Leave him out of this. We cannot. You have already bound him to the system. What system? I demanded. The air seemed to pulse. The system that keeps the world functioning. I clenched my fist. You mean the one that runs on suffering? Silence. Long. Tense. Then. Suffering is efficient. Saras turned fully toward the empty space now, rage finally cracking through his usual control. You took broken souls and stitched them together, he said sharply. You erased choice. You erased consent. You erased identity. And you call that efficiency? We call it necessity. I stepped forward, heart hammering. Then answer me something. The air seemed to focus. Listening. Why me? I demanded. Why was I able to change him? Why does this bond exist when it never has before? The silence that followed was different. Heavier. Like I'd asked the wrong question. Saras's gaze snapped to me. Jalen. Because, the voice finally said, you were not chosen by chance. My blood ran cold. You were engineered. The word hit harder than any threat. What? I whispered. Your family line has been monitored for generations. Your psychological profile. Your emotional thresholds. Your neurological adaptability. Saras shook his head. No. That's impossible. You summoned him more easily than any mortal ever has, the voice continued calmly. You bonded with him faster. You stabilized his instability instead of being consumed by it. I felt dizzy. That doesn't mean. It means you were designed to be compatible with beings like him. Saras's voice cracked. You built him to die. And you built Jalen to kill him. The air went still. Dead still. The silence was confirmation. My breath stuttered. That's not true. Your empathy was cultivated. Your resistance to authority. Your compulsion to protect. Your tendency to form emotional bonds with those in pain. My hands were shaking. You're saying my personality was planned? Optimized. The word made me feel sick. Saras turned to me, horror all over his face. No, he said urgently. That does not make your choices meaningless. It makes me feel like I'm just another tool, I whispered. He grabbed my shoulders gently, forcing me to meet his eyes. Listen to me, he said fiercely. If they built you to destroy me, then everything you have done instead is proof of your autonomy. The voice interrupted. And that autonomy is the threat. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly. Books trembled on shelves. The building groaned. You were meant to fall in love with him, the voice said calmly. That was the design. Emotional attachment increases compliance in final stage summoners. Saras's hands tightened slightly on my arms. They expected me to love him, he whispered. And then, the voice continued, you were meant to be the one capable of killing him without hesitation when instructed. I felt like I couldn't breathe. They built me to emotionally destroy you, I whispered. Saras stared at me. For a long moment he said nothing. Then softly, painfully. And instead, you stayed. My vision blurred. You weren't supposed to stay, he whispered. You were supposed to break me. The building shook again, harder this time. The experiment has failed, the voice said flatly. Therefore it will be terminated. Terminated how? I demanded. Saras pulled me closer instinctively. Through purification, he said quietly. Through extinction. The shadows at the far end of the library began to deepen. Not one. Not a collector. But many. Shapes forming. Coalescing. Dozens of them. Saras's breath hitched. They're not coming for me anymore, he said softly. I swallowed hard. They're coming for us. He looked at me. And in his eyes, there was no resignation anymore. Only decision. Then, he said quietly, I will choose you again. Chapter 7. The lives he died before me. The shadows didn't rush us. They waited. Dozens of them lining the edges of the library like patient predators. Not collectors. Not enforcers. These were different. Heavier. Older. Saras's breath stuttered beside me. They are not here to retrieve me, he whispered. They are here to erase us. The lights overhead burst one by one. Glass rained down. The air thickened until it felt like we were moving underwater. I grabbed his hand. Then we run. He didn't move. Saras. His eyes were unfocused, like he was seeing something I couldn't. "No," he murmured. "Not now, not again." "What?" Panic clawed up my throat. "Saris, talk to me." He pressed a hand to his temple. "They're not just attacking us," he said hoarsely. "They're opening me." "Opening you how?" "Memories," he whispered. "All of them. At once." The shadows surged forward. Not fast. Not slow. Just inevitable. I yanked his hand. "We don't have time for this." "I know," he gasped. "But they are forcing recall. They are trying to destabilize me from inside." The floor beneath us trembled. Books slid from shelves. The world tilted sideways. Then Saris made a sound I had never heard before. A broken, strangled sound of grief. And suddenly, I wasn't in the library anymore. I was standing in a stone chamber. Cold. Ancient. Candles lining the walls. A younger version of Saris knelt in a circle on the floor, surrounded by people. Priests. Blades. Chanting. I turned, heart racing. "What is this?" I whispered. "I think," Saris's voice echoed around me, layered with pain, "you are seeing what I remember." The younger Saris looked up. Eyes empty. Unaware. A man stepped forward, holding the same silver dagger Caldrus had given me. "You have served your function," the priest said calmly. "Be grateful." The dagger plunged into Saris's chest. I gasped. The vision shattered. And I was standing in another place. A different chamber. Different time. Different summoner. A woman sobbing as she held Saris's face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "They said I had to." He didn't resist. He never resisted. Again. And again. And again. Scene after scene flooded me. Different faces. Different centuries. Different rooms. But always the same ending. Love. Then a blade. Love. Then betrayal. Love. Then death. I staggered, clutching my head. "Stop. Stop showing me." Saris appeared in front of me in the vision, eyes full of agony. "I did not choose this," he said softly. "I did not choose any of them. I did not choose you." The words should have hurt. They didn't, because of what he said next. "But I am choosing you now." The shadows tore through the vision. Reality slammed back. We were back in the library. The creatures were closer now, almost touching distance. Saris swayed on his feet. Blood trickled from his nose. "Saris?" I grabbed him. "You're bleeding again." "I am overloading," he admitted weakly. "They are forcing too much memory through me at once." "Then shut them out." "I don't know how." One of the shadows lunged. Saris reacted instinctively. The air exploded outward like invisible thunder. Every shelf in the library slammed against the walls. The shadows screeched, actual sound this time, and recoiled violently. Silence followed. Heavy. Shock. I stared at Saris. "You did that." He looked at his hands like they didn't belong to him. "I didn't mean to." The ground cracked beneath our feet. A fracture split the floor straight down the middle. The building groaned. Saris looked up sharply. Fear in his eyes. "Jalen," he whispered. "What?" This is what they were afraid of. The air trembled again. Not from the shadows. From something deeper. Something larger. "What is happening?" I demanded. Saris's voice was barely audible. "When a demon stops functioning as designed, when we stop dying, when we begin choosing." The shadows around us began to dissolve, not attacking but retreating, like they were afraid now. Saris swallowed hard. "The world begins to notice." Above us the ceiling split open, not collapsing, parting, revealing not sky, but endless white, like a crack in reality itself. And from beyond it, something vast shifted. Watching. Measuring. I felt small. So small. Saris clutched my hand desperately. "They are no longer debating whether to erase us," he whispered. My throat went dry. "What are they doing?" He looked at me with terror I'd never seen in him before. "They are preparing to descend." Chapter 8. The Choice That Breaks Heaven. The crack in the ceiling didn't close. It widened. Slowly. Deliberately. Like something on the other side was pushing its fingers through reality. The library shook violently. Walls split. Shelves collapsed. Dust filled the air so thick I could barely see. Saris pulled me into him instinctively, arms tight around my shoulders. "Do not look up," he whispered urgently. Why not? I choked. Because if you see them fully, he said shakily, you will never unsee them. That didn't help. The air became painfully cold. Not winter cold. Not night cold. The kind of cold that feels like judgment. A pressure descended on us, crushing and immense, like the weight of an ocean pressing down on a single breath. And then the voice returned. Not calm now. Not distant. Closer. This is not how you were meant to love. Saris flinched like he'd been struck. I wrapped my arms tighter around him. Don't listen to them. You were meant to be a function, the voice continued. Not a choice. The crack above us glowed brighter. I could see movement inside the white. Not shapes. Not forms. Just presence. Awareness. Watching. Judging. And you, the voice added, now directed at me, were meant to complete the cycle. I swallowed hard. You don't get to tell me what I was meant to do. The silence that followed was heavy. Dangerous. Then. You misunderstand. This is not instruction. It is design. Saris shook his head violently. You do not get to define him. The pressure intensified. The ground buckled. Cracks spiderwebbed beneath our feet. Saris suddenly gasped sharply, staggering backward like he'd been yanked by an invisible force. Saris? I grabbed him. He clutched his chest, face twisted in agony. They're pulling on the core, he gasped. Trying to activate termination remotely. My heart stopped. What does that mean? It means, he struggled to breathe. It means I am running out of time. No, I said desperately. No, you're not dying. You're not doing that. Not again. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. Not resigned. Not distant. But unbearably soft. Jalen, he whispered, if I am erased they will lose the anomaly. They will stop pursuing you. Cold horror slid into my chest. You're talking about sacrificing yourself, I said. He didn't deny it. I am designed to die, he said quietly. If I choose to die now, on my terms, it disrupts less than if we continue to resist. No, I said immediately. No, absolutely not. Jalen. You don't get to make that choice alone, I snapped, voice breaking. Not after everything. His hands trembled as they cupped my face. I do not want to leave you, he whispered. That is the problem. Tears blurred my vision. Then don't. If I stay, he said softly, they will escalate. They will hurt you. They will hurt everyone. Then we fight, I said fiercely. We keep choosing each other. We don't give them what they want. He looked at me like I was asking him to believe in something impossible. Maybe I was. Jalen, he whispered, voice breaking, you deserve a life that does not end in ruin. So do you. The pressure in the room spiked violently. Saris cried out, collapsing to his knees. I dropped with him, holding him upright. Saris, stay with me. He was shaking now, breath ragged. They're forcing the sever, he gasped. Trying to separate us. I felt it then. That thread. That invisible connection we'd felt before. Straining. Stretching. Like something trying to tear us apart from the inside. Panic ripped through me. No, I whispered desperately. No, 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 don't you dare leave me now. His forehead rested against mine. Jalen, he murmured. If I go. You're not going, I said fiercely. You are not leaving me. Do you hear me? He let out a broken, almost laugh. You are infuriatingly impossible. Good, I said through tears. Get used to it. The pressure peaked. The crack above us widened enough that I could see movement in the white. Not shape, but intention. And suddenly, I knew. They weren't just watching anymore. They were about to step through. Saris looked up, horror in his eyes. They are crossing, he whispered. What happens when they do? His gaze dropped back to mine. If they fully manifest, he said softly, this world will no longer be ours. I stared at him, heart pounding, mind racing. Then something inside me went still. Clear. Certain. Then we make our own rules before they do, I said quietly. He blinked. What? I grabbed his hands tightly. You said earlier that when we focus on each other you can stabilize, I said. You said I'm part of the anomaly. So what if we stop trying to survive their system? I swallowed hard. And start rewriting it? Sarah stared at me. Fear. Hope. All colliding. You're suggesting we challenge the gods directly, he whispered. I nodded, even though terror screamed in every nerve. Yes. He searched my face. Jalen, he said softly, that could destroy everything. I squeezed his hands tighter. Or it could free everyone who's been trapped like you. The crack above us pulsed. The presence beyond it shifted closer. Saris's gaze hardened slowly. Something changed in him then. Not fear. Not hesitation. But decision. If we do this, he said quietly, there will be no return. I held his gaze, heart hammering. Then don't let go, I said softly. The world trembled violently. The crack burst wider. Blinding white light poured through. And from within it, something vast began to descend. Saris pulled me close, voice low, urgent. Jalen, he whispered, whatever happens next. He swallowed hard. Know that loving you was never part of their design. My breath hitched. It was my rebellion. The light exploded outward. Reality fractured. And everything went white. Chapter 9, The World That Was Never Theirs to Own. The white didn't fade. It peeled back. Like skin. Like illusion. I was still holding Saris when the light thinned enough for me to see again, but the library was gone. Not destroyed. Replaced. We were standing in something vast and empty, a colorless expanse that felt like the inside of a thought. No walls. No sky. No ground. Just endless pale space. Saris was still solid in my arms. Thank God. I tightened my grip on him instinctively. Where are we? He looked around slowly, dread creeping into his expression. This is not a place, he said quietly. This is a layer. A pressure descended instantly. Not physical. Existential. Like being observed by something too big to comprehend. And then they appeared. Not bodies. Not shapes. But presences. 7 points of deeper brightness forming in the emptiness, like stars that were too close. Each one felt different. Cold. Sure. Ancient. Unmoving. Saris went very still. They are here, he whispered. A voice spoke. Not one voice. Many layered together. You have disrupted the design. The air felt heavier with every word. You have corrupted the asset. You have fractured the cycle. You have endangered the world. I stepped forward instinctively, pulling Saris with me. He's not an asset, I snapped. He's a person. Pause. Not because they needed to consider, but because they didn't understand why I said that. Personhood is irrelevant to function. Rage burned hot in my chest. You built a world on suffering and called it order, I said. You tortured beings and called it necessary. You manipulated people and called it design. The presences pulsed faintly. You are emotional. Damn right I am. Saris's hand tightened in mine. You claim to be architects, I continued, voice shaking but strong. So answer me this. If your system is so perfect, why does it collapse the moment one being chooses differently? Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Saris stared at the presences like he couldn't believe I was speaking to them this way. I squeezed his hand. They fear you, I whispered. He looked at me. What? They fear what you've become, I said quietly. Because if you can change, then everything they built on control can change too. The presences shifted subtly. Not emotion, but adjustment. Correction is possible. Saris stiffened. What does that mean? I demanded. Separation. My blood ran cold. The bond between anomaly and asset will be severed. The system will be restored. The world will stabilize. I shook my head violently. No. Absolutely not. Saris turned sharply to them. You will not take him from me. The presences pulsed. You do not possess authority to refuse. Saris's voice broke. You gave me no authority when you made me. You gave me no choice when you killed me again and again. But I have choice now. The brightness trembled faintly. Not in fear. In response. Saris took a step forward, still holding my hand. And I choose him, he said clearly. I choose myself. I choose every being like me who never had the chance to choose. The emptiness around us trembled. Cracks appeared in nothingness itself. Choice destabilizes continuity. Then maybe continuity deserves to be destabilized. I shot back. One of the presences pulsed more strongly. If the bond remains intact, the anomaly will spread. Other constructs will awaken. Other summoners will resist. The system will collapse. Saris's grip on my hand tightened painfully. You mean, others like me could be freed, he whispered. Yes. The word hit like thunder. Saris went still. Hope, sharp and dangerous, flashed through his expression. Then the presences spoke again. But if the bond is severed, this anomaly ends here. You will be restored to function. He will forget you ever existed. My heart stopped. What? I whispered. Saris turned slowly to me. Horror in his eyes. They want to erase you from him, I breathed. Not erased, the presences corrected. Never formed. The idea was worse. They weren't threatening death. They were threatening non-existence. Your presence will be removed from his memory. From his emotional architecture. From his history. Saris's hands were shaking. No, he whispered. No, you cannot. This is the compromise. Compromise. As if this was generous. The world remains stable. The asset remains functional. The anomaly is resolved. Saris looked at me like his entire existence was breaking apart. They will take you from me, he whispered. And I will not even remember that you were ever mine. Tears burned in my eyes. That's not a compromise, I said hoarsely. That's torture. It is mercy. Saris let out a broken sound. I grabbed his face firmly, forcing him to look at me. Listen to me, I said through tears. They're offering this because they're scared. He shook his head. Jalen, if they erase you, you will be safe. I don't care about safe, I said fiercely. I care about real. I care about you. He stared at me like I'd just handed him the most dangerous thing in existence. Love without condition. Without design. Without control. The presences spoke again. Choose. The word rang through everything. If you allow the severance, he lives. If you refuse, we will collapse the anomaly completely. What does that mean? I demanded. Erasure. Saris inhaled sharply. Not of memory, he whispered. Of existence. I froze. You're saying if we stay bonded? Both will be unmade. The emptiness trembled. This is the final option. Silence fell. Heavy. Absolute. Saris looked at me, devastation in every line of his face. They are asking me to choose between you and you, he whispered. My heart shattered. If he let them sever the bond, he'd live but never know me. If he refused, we'd both cease to exist. There was no option that didn't involve loss. I lifted my hand and pressed my forehead to his. Then don't choose for them, I whispered. Choose for yourself. His breath hitched. What if I choose you and we both disappear? He asked softly. I smiled weakly through tears. Then at least we disappear knowing we were real, I said. Not because they allowed us to be. The presences pulsed. Waiting. Saris closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something inside him had changed. Not fear. Not hesitation. Resolve. He looked up at the presences. I refuse, he said quietly. The emptiness shook violently. Cracks tore through reality like lightning. Then you accept erasure. Saris turned back to me. Tears streamed freely down his face now. I am so sorry, he whispered. I wanted to give you a life. I cupped his face gently. You did, I whispered back. You gave me a life that was mine. The world began to break. Not collapse. Unravel. White fissures splitting through everything. Saris pulled me into a desperate embrace. Holding me like he could anchor me to existence itself. I love you, he whispered against my hair. The words shattered me. But they also made everything crystal clear. I love you too, I whispered back. The emptiness cracked wider. The presences pulsed brighter. Initiating erasure. Light exploded outward. Saris held me tighter. And just before everything vanished, I felt something shift. Not from them. From me. From us. That thread between us? It didn't snap. It burned. Brighter than anything. Stronger than fear. Stronger than design. Stronger than God's. And suddenly, the erasure stopped. Dead. Still. Silence. The presences went dark. And a new voice echoed through the emptiness. Not theirs. Not his. Not mine. But something born between us. No. Chapter 10, The World We Chose. The word no did not echo. It rewrote. The emptiness around us didn't shatter. It stilled. Like the pause between heartbeats. The seven presences flickered. Not dimmer. Not brighter. Uncertain. That had never happened before. Saris loosened his hold on me just enough to look at my face. Jalen, he whispered. Did you feel that? I nodded slowly. Yeah. It wasn't power like lightning. It wasn't divine. It was quieter than that. Stronger. Like when you stand your ground against something that's always expected you to kneel. The thread between us, the one I'd felt since the alley, since the bond first formed, was no longer a thread. It was a line. Unbreakable. The presences pulsed again. But this time the voice that spoke wasn't united. It fractured. This is not possible. The anomaly should have collapsed. The system should have corrected. Why does the bond persist? Saris turned slowly toward them. His shoulders were no longer shaking. His voice when he spoke was steady. You taught me function, he said. You taught me obedience. You taught me how to die. He squeezed my hand tighter. But you never taught me how to live. The emptiness trembled. Cracks appeared in the pale expanse again, but not violent ones. These were like seams being unpicked. You are destabilizing reality, one presence warned. No, I said quietly. You are. They paused. Actually paused. And suddenly I understood. You're not gods, I said slowly. You're administrators. Saris looked at me sharply. The presences didn't respond. I stepped forward, still holding Saris's hand. You didn't create existence, I continued. You just organized it, controlled it, managed it. The air felt different now. Less oppressive. Less absolute. You built a system, I said. And systems can be changed. Saris stared at me like something was clicking into place. The presences pulsed erratically now. If the system collapses, the world will suffer. If miracles fail, people will die. If constructs awaken, chaos will follow. Maybe, I admitted. But people are already suffering. You just hit it better. Silence. Uncomfortable. Then Saris spoke again. If demons like me are freed, he said quietly, we will not disappear. He looked at the presences. We will exist. The word exist hit harder than any threat. You were afraid of that, I realized aloud. Not because it would destroy the world, but because it would take control away from you. The emptiness shifted. Not outward. Inward. Like a structure folding in on itself. Saris's voice softened but didn't weaken. You taught me that love was corruption, he said. That attachment was defect. That choice was dangerous. He looked down at our hands. At him. Then you were wrong. The presences did not answer. Because for the first time, they didn't have the authority to. The pale space around us began to dissolve, not violently but gently like fog lifting. The library returned. Broken shelves. Cracked floor. Fallen books. Reality came back. And the gods? They didn't descend. They didn't strike. They didn't erase. They withdrew. Not in defeat. In retreat. Saris looked around slowly, like he couldn't believe we were still here. We're, he started. Here, I finished. We're still here. He looked at me. Eyes full. Not of fear. Not of resignation. Of wonder. I chose you, he said quietly. And you didn't disappear, I said with a small broken laugh. No, he whispered. Because you chose me back. The world outside the library was still messy. Still human. Still imperfect. But it was real. No divine presence pressing down. No invisible system forcing cycles. Just consequences. Change. Uncertainty. Freedom. Weeks later we learned the effects. Miracles became rarer. Not gone. But slower. More human. People had to help each other more. Healing came from care. From time. From community. Not from sacrifice. Not from death. Rumors spread. Of demons who refused to die. Of summoners who broke their contracts. Of beings who walked away from temples instead of kneeling in them. A quiet revolution. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just living. Saris changed too. Not into a human. Not into something else. Just into himself. He learned to sleep. To laugh. To argue. To get jealous when strangers flirted with me. To apologize when he didn't mean to be cold. He learned to want things. A favorite coffee. A favorite song. A favorite place to stand beside me on the balcony at night. One evening months later he stood beside me watching the city lights. You are still here, he said softly. Yeah, I smiled. That's how existence works. He shook his head. No. You are still choosing me. I turned toward him. Yeah. That too. He hesitated. Still unsure sometimes. Still learning. Jalen, he said quietly, I do not know what I am yet. I reached for his hand. That's okay, I said. Neither do I. He searched my face. You are not afraid? He asked. I smiled softly. I am, I admitted. But I'd rather be afraid in something real than safe in something controlled. Something in his expression broke open. Not pain. Relief. He leaned down slowly, gently, like he was still asking permission from the world. I met him halfway. The kiss wasn't dramatic. Wasn't desperate. It was warm. Certain. Chosen. When we pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. This life, he whispered, was never in their design. I smiled. Good. He exhaled a quiet, almost laugh. Then it is ours. And for the first time since the beginning of everything, there was no system watching. No cycle demanding. No gods calculating. Just two people standing in a world they chose. Not perfect. Not easy. But real. And chosen love, I learned, is stronger than any design ever could be.